Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. Right now, very happy to welcome to the show the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. He's the first Black governor of the state. Before that, he served in the U.S. Army as an officer, a Rhodes Scholar, best-selling author, CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, and now governor. Governor, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on, my friend.
Dean, it's good to see you, man. This is great. I've been looking forward to this.
So, by the way, first of all, you've had a remarkable life. Like, this is truly a journey that you've gone through. What's it like now on a personal level being governor?
It's wild, man, because I'm probably the most improbable governor in America. There was nothing about my life that said when I was younger, you're going to be the governor. I was raised by an immigrant single mom who didn't get her first job that gave her benefits until I was 14. Wow. I had handcuffs on my wrist when I was 11. I was sent to military school when I was 13. I joined the Army when I was 17. I went to a 2-year college. Mm-hmm. So, there was nothing about this journey that said you're going to be the 63rd governor of the state. But I think it's the reason why I love the work is we move with a sense of urgency. There is no entitlement in our team because I think we all understand that we're all on borrowed time. And just while we're here, we're going to do something special with it. And, I have a clock sits on my desk. In fact, it says right there that we've got 919 days left in my first term. And I keep that there every single day because it's a reminder that you better make sure that every day matters because we have a really special blessing that we have to fulfill.
That's a great philosophy. And it is remarkable. I saw you went to Valley Forge, a camp where Donald Trump went to. And we share something because I went to Fordham and Trump went to Fordham for 2 years before he went to UPenn. But nowhere in any Fordham literature does it say Donald Trump went there. So I'm not kidding. If you go, no one at Fordham will admit to it because he talks about UPenn. We're like, good. You talk about UPenn because he was a New York guy. He was from Queens. He went to Fordham in the Bronx, where I went to Fordham in the Bronx.
That's right.
So yesterday, big primary in your state. Angela Alsobrooks won the Senate race. We had her on the show a couple of months ago, and she was outspent 10-1. How did this happen? How did she overcome this huge deficit in terms of financing and funding?
Well, I think, elections come down to who's willing to work hardest for it. I remember when I ran for governor, I was running against people who were statewide elected officials, people who were cabinet secretaries. It's funny, Dean, I remember my first race in my first poll, I'm not voting was polling higher than Wes Moore. So I looked at this and said, well, there's only one way we're going to win this thing is you just got to be yourself. Right. You got to outwork everybody. And you need to introduce yourself to as many people as possible, and then put your fate in the hands of the people. And I was proud to endorse Angela very early inside this race because I knew she was going to do exactly that she was going to work hard. She was going to share her message. She was going to share her vision. And I know Maryland. I know our state. I know my state very well. And I know that the person who can inspire the greatest level of hope and the greatest level of vision and the greatest level of competence inside this work is the person that's going to be victorious inside this race. And so while I was very proud to see Angela win yesterday, I was not at all surprised. And I think it just showed why so early I was so all in to make sure that she becomes our next senator.
It would be remarkable. Like she's running against the person who used to hold your office, Larry Hogan, as a Republican. And obviously he's well known, great name recognition. Is it going to be a lot of work? Is it hard? Is it easy? How does it look?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging because he was the old governor was there for 8 years.
Yeah,
and so he has a high name recognition. But also, I know our state, and I don't believe our state is going to want to give control of the Senate to the Republican Party. I think that they know that a vote for the old governor is going to be a vote for Donald Trump. He has said that he is going to caucus with the Republican Party. And I think for many people in Maryland, that's all they need to hear. And also, I think that this race is going to present a great contrast. You have Angela, who has spent her time in her career working to protect, reproductive rights. And the old governor has spent time vetoing legislation on privacy and protections and being anti-choice. That you have, Angela, who, when she was when she was a state's attorney for Prince George's County, helped to lower the crime rate in Prince George's County by half. And the old governor, when he was governor, we went 8 straight years under his tenure of 300 plus homicides in the city of Baltimore.
Wow.
where we watch crime rates we watch violence and double. We watched homicide rates nearly double during his 8-year span. And so I think when you look at the track record of the county executive and the track record of the old governor, I think that people are going to be very clear that Angela Alsobrooks is going to be the person that we're going to choose to go to the Senate.
I emailed her campaign today, said whatever we can do to help win. We want Senator Alsobrooks there. I'm chatting with Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. So, Governor, you've gone 26 for 26 with the bills that you've championed. You should be playing for the Orioles because they could use you, because it could be a tight pennant race this year with the Yankees. Even the great Aaron Judge doesn't go 26 for 26.
That's right.
So how did you were able to do this with bipartisan support on legislation? And I want to touch on a couple of things like the Enough Act, but how were you able to do this?
Well, I think part of what it is that we were able to engage people early and to show that the ideas and the solutions and the innovations that we were presenting in our legislation, they were not Democratic ideas. They were not Republican ideas.
Right.
They were ideas that could truly support all communities throughout the state of Maryland. And when people ask the question, how did you get bipartisan support on raising a minimum wage? How did you get bipartisan support on expanding the earned income tax credit, making the child tax credit permanent? How did you get bipartisan support on the most aggressive housing package in the history of the state of Maryland? My answer is that we went everywhere and we pitched it. We told them why we thought this was important for each individual community. And frankly, it was the same way that we campaigned. And and I look at my background and my history, where I don't come from a political background.
Right.
I don't come from a political family. I never run for office before. In fact, I say I had to convince many members of my family to vote for me, and it's partially because many of my members of my family had never voted before. Right, so that wasn't something that we came from. Yet at the same time, I know that in the military, where I joined the military when I was 17, I remember thinking that one question I never once asked my soldiers was, "What's your political party?" I never once asked that question. And I knew that was the type of philosophy that we will bring into our politics. And so I think the reason that we have been able to be successful in passing legislation and passing it bipartisan is because I don't lead with it and I don't leave with it. I just know that the policies and the positions we are putting forward, that there's data behind it, and they show that they can have a concrete impact on the people of our state.
And that's so fundamentally important. And also there are at least some reasonable Republicans, like in certain states, and I live in New York, there are some, to be honest. We see the ones in Congress who they're putting on a show. They're auditioning for Fox News and Newsmax, and it's become unmanageable because they're not there for the people anymore. They're
Right.
there for themselves and their own egos. And so I want to touch on one thing, the Enough Act, which addresses concentrated poverty in your state. Can you share a little bit about that and how that will work?
Yeah, it's I'm so excited about this piece of legislation. It's a first in the country piece of legislation where the state is going to be making place-based, data-driven place-based investments on how we are eliminating concentrated and oftentimes generational childhood poverty within our state. And really what it's doing is it's identifying best practices that are coming from the community instead of just for the community. Because the way oftentimes poverty is addressed in our society is we tell communities what it is that they need to do.
Right.
We introduce things, we say, you should do this and you should do that. And then we get surprised when there's that measure of organ rejection that then takes place when the community doesn't accept it because the community never saw it as their own. And so really what we're doing with the Enough Act is this. We're saying we're going to communities, and the only definitional criteria that we have is that it needs to be a community that has over 20% of their population, of their children are living in poverty, and that they are going to have a coordinated plan that's going to include everything from schools to community members, urban planners, faith-based organizations, the business community. And they'll work with our Governor's Office of Children, our newly reinstated Governor's Office of Children, and they present the plans. And then the state then provides the supports. So the community presents the plans, the state provides the supports, and not the other way around, which is the way it's often done. And so we're thrilled that Maryland is really helping to lead the way and lead the charge on this initiative. And I think that, this is going to make a significant and a substantial impact. And I know I saw it before I ran for governor. I ran one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country. And we saw what models could actually work. We saw what best practices actually look like. We saw what could happen if you made data-driven decisions. And now simply what we're doing is, now as the governor of the state, I'm saying, now what could that look like if you could put a state budget behind it? So we're really excited about what this is and what it's going to mean for countless children.
We're going to follow this bill, this legislation, because it is unique, and the prospect for change in a positive way can break this cycle of poverty that people live through. And in other states, sometimes they throw money at it. When they have good times in the economy, when they have bad, they pull back, and the people just live in this cycle without any fundamental change. I'm chatting with Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. So, Governor, last two things. One is with gun violence. You've been leading the charge, and your state, you said, with the Enough Act, it was the first legislation dealing with this. You have the first state gun safety
That's right.
office department. Could you share a little bit about that, and also the Gun Safety Act of 2023?
Absolutely. I knew that we had a serious problem with gun violence in our society. Again, under the old governor, I mean, we went 8 straight years of 300 plus homicides in the city of Baltimore, without a single solution that was being crafted. And I just said, I refuse to spend my time in office and just attend funerals and give thoughts and prayers without passing a single piece of legislation and not having a single initiative that is dealing with the issue of these illegal guns in our neighborhoods, that we have got to rid our communities of these illegal guns. We've got to make sure we have accountability for those who are making others and making their neighbors feel less safe. And so we decided to take an aggressive posture on it. And so that includes things like creating the first state, being the first state in the country that now has a center for gun violence that's actually housed in our Department of Health, because we know that this is as much a mental health crisis as it is anything else. That we've increased penalties for increased common sense gun laws within our society, and basically saying things like, if a person has a history of mental illness and a history of violence, they should not be allowed to purchase a firearm. Saying things like there's no reason for a person to bring a firearm into a nursery or into a home of worship or into a government building. Common sense gun laws that we think not just make sense, but also make people safer. And if you look at what's happening right now, take the city of Baltimore. Since our administration has taken over, we have seen close to a 50% drop in homicides since we've come on board.
That's remarkable.
We're talking the largest drops in homicides in the history of Baltimore, some of the largest drops in our country since our administration has come on board. That we've seen levels of shootings, non-fatal shootings, homicides drop. We've seen carjackings drop in our state. So what's happening is working, but we've got to make sure we take this issue seriously. We've got to make sure we prioritize public safety. And we also have to make sure that doesn't mean militarizing the situation. We made some of the largest investments in local law enforcement in our state's history. And at the same time, we also understand that you're not going to just police your way out of something that's also a bigger crisis. So by being able to take an all of the above approach, I think we've been able to see real sustainable differences and impacts.
Is part of it gaining trust of a community that in the past did not view the police as their friend, that you didn't want to call them? And now the idea of community policing, that you can actually build bridges and work together toward reducing crime?
100%. I mean, listen, I felt handcuffs on my wrist when I was 11 years old. I mean, because I came up in a community that was over-policed and we knew it. Right. A community where we knew that every problem, that was the way that it was addressed and it was dealt with. And so we knew that you're not going to be able to build community by not seeing them as part of the solution to the upliftment of the community. It is like the whole idea of, nothing about us without us, right? And so it very much is like, how are we working with the community to be able to build the supports, investing in things like after-school programs, making historic investments in job training and job reskilling, making historic investments in apprenticeship programs, making sure that people, Maryland, we became the first state in this country that now has a service year option for all of our high school graduates. That all of our high school graduates have a chance to have a year of service to the state of Maryland, a paid year of service to the state of Maryland. So we've tried to introduce a multitude of different approaches to be able to build a sense of community engagement, community involvement, community trust, because we believe deeply that those things will also lead to a greater measure of public safety.
I think that's great. And you're also making Maryland such an inviting place for people to come, move to, start a family, live there, the whole thing. Governor, I'll let you go. It's great chatting with you. I hope we'll get to chat with you again, especially in the fall. We'll get closer to 2024 election for President's race and for Angela's race. But have a great day and keep up the great work. You're doing a great job. You're doing is better than the Orioles. That's all I'm going to say.
Dean, God bless you, man, and go O's. Go O's.
Take care. Have a great day.